Welcome everyone to Mailfuzz TV. I am Peter and today I'm going to be talking about The Lost Room episode 2. It is called The Clock. So spoilers for the episode, and this is a Patreon sponsored review, so thank you very much to Fletcher for making the pick. The first part ended with Joe's daughter being lost in the room. That was the big cliffhanger. So naturally this one's largely about him at least starting to try and find a way to get her back, and mostly revolves around him working with the Weasel, the villain from episode 1, to try and do that. I think what stuck out to me the most about this episode is just how much I'm still enjoying the rules that keep expanding about this room and the objects that everyone's looking for and how they work. Not even so much the individual objects themselves and what they can do, although some of that's interesting, like the watch that can just cook an egg, bizarrely. It's very weird. The fact that there's still items that no one knows what they do, they just know that they are items. That's interesting. But, like, just throughout the episode, it keeps adding in more interesting things. Like, for one, when Joe goes to see the lady that knocked him out last time, with the, I think it's a nail file? Or maybe a... I don't know what else would it be. It's like a little metal thing. I think it's a nail file. But she knocked him out. She put him to sleep with that last episode, right? And we see that in action again. But when he goes to see her, and she makes the whole offer about, join us. We're trying to get all the objects so we can get rid of them. We're the Legion, her group is, right? As opposed to the faction led by the Antiques guy. What's his name? Creutzfeldt, who we saw in episode 1. We get a lot more of him in this episode because we get a whole break into his house. But more on that in a minute. But when Joe goes to her, she's like smashing all these radios, and she's like, one of these is an object. And he's like, so you're smashing it with a hammer? Like, that doesn't seem like a good way of dealing with it. And she's like, you idiot, Joe. Don't you know that you cannot destroy an object? So there's another rule that we didn't know before. You cannot destroy one of these things. They will magically just not be destroyed. So that's interesting. I like that. I also like, my more favorite rule of this episode is the idea that if you put an object back into the room and leave it, unlike anything else, it will stay there when you open the door. But more specifically, it'll reset to wherever it's supposed to be in the room, like its starting position, if you will. So we do this with the pen. Once he gets the Weasel, he gets his pen, so he can't hurt him with it. And he tests it. He puts the pen on the table in the room, shuts the door, opens it, and it's still there, but it's moved to its place on the table that presumably it started, because all the items must have started somewhere in this room. And I love how that's used later with the safe. It's such a cool workaround where you realize what he's doing, because the Weasel's like, oh, I think I know a safe cracker. We can get into the safe because the clock, the object they're looking for, is in the safe. But Joe uses his brain and just locks it in the room and opens the door again. And of course the safe's disappeared, but the clock stays in the room and goes back to its position. So there, voila, it's out of the safe. I love that. I love that they set that up and then they used it in a really fun way. It, in the same sense that the room itself is effectively a teleportation device and you can use it in a variety of ways. This felt like, oh, we're using this to get around a safe because we know how the rules. It's almost like hitting like the reload button on a video game, right? Of understanding that you're just putting everything back to the starting position, and I love that being used mechanically, and the characters like actually thinking about it. And one of my favorite things about episode 1, actually, if you remember, was towards the end when he was going to meet the villains when they had his daughter. The Weasel got a bunch of like the guys to like get rid of all the doors in this like building they were in, so that he couldn't sneak in. This idea that if there's no doors, then he can't use the key to sneak in. And I love that they doubled down in that in this episode with the antiques guy, Creutzfeldt, because he's got his little museum in his house. He has all these things, but when they start discussing, oh, we have to get in there and get the clock because the clock is potentially really important and will help get your daughter back. I'll go into that in a minute, I guess, but just to go talk about the house, I love that this guy redesigned the house to not have any traditional doors. He only has sliding doors and doors that have keycard locks, because the one thing that you need to use this key is you need a traditional doorknob of some kind. Doesn't have to be the exact same kind, but it has to be a doorknob, and it has to have a lock so you can put the key in. That's it. That's the whole rule. It is to have a doorknob and a key, and you can understand that so easily that it just needs to have it. It doesn't have to be something that already existed. In fact, as we see, Joe thinks outside the box when looking a way to get out of the house later by literally installing a doorknob with a lock onto an old door so they can use it to escape. I love the idea that these things are set up and then they play out in very like creative ways where the writers have really thought about how can you use this in a situation tactically. We've got these new tools, so let's use them. And this idea that he like finds the old like house plans, or he remodeled over these old doors, there might be a door still there because it's missing on the new plan. And sure enough, he axes down the wall, he installs the doorknob, and it ends, it leads to this really like tense sequence because the guy and his henchmen are trying to like bash through the bulletproof glass to get to them. So they're being watched as he's trying to install a doorknob with a drill, and they cut the power to the room so his drill won't work to try and slow him down. Like it's such a great sequence because all it fundamentally is like, bad guys try to get to good guys and like the time's running out and it's like nail biting, like, against the clock type stuff. But the setup is so unique because it's such like weird details, but they all make sense. If you've been paying attention, every single part of this makes sense. As does, of course, the way that they get into the house, which is he saw when he was at this guy's house in episode 1 as a cop, that his son's got like a little like play castle house thing, and that does have a door. That is the little door they use to get into the house, which also I thought was really fun. So I love the way that this is all kind of set up and then used proactively by characters in this problem-solving manner. And I especially like that the villains sometimes know that someone has this key and have built like natural defenses to get around it. So it's exciting to watch, and it's especially fun because the villain, in this case, knows what they're doing. He knows that they're going to get away if they can install this doorknob. These sentences sound crazy to say out loud, but it's really fun to actually watch. And then the other rule, of course, is that when the Weasel gets his pen back, he sneakily grabs it. He tries to use it on Joe, but he uses it when they're in the room. And it's actually a very funny moment where he realizes he's holding the pen to his neck. Oh, it won't work in the room. And that's it. It's just this comedy beat. And then Joe throws him back through the door to the bad guy. Like, he literally comes out the same door that they just installed the doorknob on. So now he's with the bad guys, the other bad guys, I guess. So, yeah, I mean, all that stuff was super fun. And then, the reason why they want the clock is because it's believed to be the prime item, the item that can control all the other items. And maybe with that, you can get your daughter back. But clearly just wanting her back and saying that he wants her back when he goes to open the door with both the clock and the key does not work. Does that mean the Weasel was full of crap? I don't know if he was full of crap per se. I'm sure he just doesn't understand like how you can put all these things together. But there is examples earlier on about how, the watch can cook an egg and that's it. But if you put the watch with this other item, all of a sudden you get like a telepathy thing going on. I don't know how that works, but it's like, okay, interesting combinations. Maybe if you get all the items together, you have complete control of wherever like items go that aren't supposed to be in the room and where they disappear to, or people in this case, which is the main point. Which there's a really nice moment early on where Joe leaves a note for his daughter and he leaves it in the room, saying that he's coming to find her, and he shuts the door. And I really like it because it's like he doesn't know for sure if she's going to get that note, but it does stand enough reason to think that there's a chance that, yeah, it might go wherever she also is. Like if she is existing somewhere in some capacity, some kind of storage room, if you will, then this note would also go there because it would go to the same place, potentially, assuming they don't get incinerated into the ether every time the room gets reset, which is also possible. I don't expect we're going that dark, though. I suspect the daughter is there somewhere, and that's part of the fun of trying to find her. So all that stuff was great. I was having fun with all these new rules of talking about the mythology of the items. I also loved, again, Joe using things that he's learned. He uses the nail file or whatever it is to knock out someone near the end. I'll talk about that separately because it's kind of a separate plot. And he also, I love this, like the first thing he does is he wants to find Wally again, the guy with the bus ticket. And he does this by using the lost room to go to the location where everyone keeps landing when the bus ticket guy, Wally, zaps them with it, and they always fall in the same place. So he basically just goes there and waits until someone falls and says, okay, where were you? Where did you just come from, so I know where Wally is? I love that. It's simple problem solving, but it makes complete sense that if he zaps someone to go there, then wherever he just got zapped from is where Wally currently is. So he finds Wally very quickly, and he's been kind of funny and likable. He's sort of threatening people with his bus ticket, which is just kind of ludicrous in a lot of ways. So I was enjoying that, and he does want to help Joe, and he's like explaining some of these rules with the items, and maybe there's a 1 in a million chance if you put the right items together, you'll be able to do something. But of course, it's still leaving the question open of like, where did she actually go? Where is she currently existing? That's a question I'm certainly having as I'm thinking about it. So yeah, that stuff is also good. The part of the episode that I was less hot on, I'll say, is there's a character who also works at the station. I think he's like I don't know if he's the coroner or just like the forensics guy or whatever, but Martin is his name. He starts investigating stuff, because they're helping the crime scene. Basically, everyone thinks that Joe's ran away with his daughter because he was going to lose custody of her. And his partner doesn't believe that, of course, but it's a concern that he's going to be like tried as some kind of kidnapper and whatnot, even though the partner, once he's told, understands that she's been missing in the room, and he knows what that means. But Martin goes investigating, tries a bunch of numbers. They all hang up or don't exist anymore, but it does get attention of these people, this group that want the items. And they kind of contact them and sort of walk past them and say, hey, stop calling numbers if you want to live. But basically say, if you can get us an item, we'll talk and we'll give you answers, because he really wants answers. I did think his sort of villainous turn, where at the end he like just shoots Joe's partner, right? Joe's partner's dead at the end of this episode, seemingly. I mean, maybe he's not. Maybe they'll take him to the hospital. But it looked like he was dead, and then on the phone it sounds like Martin's framing Joe for this and saying Joe just killed his partner. So it looks like he's definitely dead. This villainous turn, as well as some of the acting, I think from the actor, I thought was a little bit, just a bit on the cheesy side, a little bit more hammy. And while I think there's some cheesier elements in the show, like I think the Weasel is a little bit cheesy at times. Yeah, I think he's always cheesy in like an endearing way, where I'm always kind of like, oh, this is kind of a fun 2000s cheesy kind of TV show type stuff. I think Martin's just kind of a weaker character so far. I mean, maybe he'll flesh out a little bit in the remaining parts, and I'll get more out of him when that happens. But right now, his turn feels a little bit. I think, but there's two things. One, the cheesier acting, and the willingness to just start shooting people he thought were friends at the end just feels a little bit underdeveloped. But I think it's also the fact that when he was investigating stuff, and he goes to talk to someone who's in like a mental hospital who used to be a part of one of these groups, and starts telling him stuff. Like, it's all stuff we kind of already know for the most part. There's nothing like new or that exciting about anything he's like finding out in his scenes. It's all just kind of about him getting closer to like the plot. And when he does ask Joe, when they all meet, when him and his partner meet with them at the end of the episode, I did have like some suspicions. I was like, oh, this feels like maybe he's setting them up. Maybe he wants to like get in good with this bad division, this team, so he's going to like set them up or get the item for them. I had those feelings, but at the same time, I didn't think he was going to go that far with it. I thought it was going to be more of like, oh, maybe he'll make a move, maybe he's eyeing the key up, maybe he's doing whatever. And it kind of escalated very suddenly in a very, very quick way, which, it was probably the part of the episode that I liked the least. And but it ramps up tension because now Joe is wanted for murder, and the episode ends with him just walking outside of the motel room. And it's very bright. It almost looks like he's just walking out into the outside of the motel. Maybe he wants to go to the exterior of the motel, assuming he can do that with the key. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe it was just meant to be like a visual kind of shiny thing to end the episode on. I mean, I could be wrong, but no, I really dug that. So there's a lot of like groups here, right? We've at least got the Antiques guy, right? Crutzfeld's team, right? He's got the house with all the artifacts, and he's got a security detail, and he's built his house to withstand anyone with the key. You've got the lady, Jennifer Bloom, right? The attractive lady of the cast, and she represents this other faction called the Legion, who want to collect the items to get rid of them. And notably, when she's saying, because Joe says, oh, do people willingly give them over? And he's like, hey, some people beg. I mean, let me ask you this. Has your life gotten better or worse since you had that key in your possession? And she's got a point. His life is undeniably worse, even though, of course, he needs to keep the key until he finds his daughter. So he's got this motive to not want to just kind of, get in bed with any group that asks. But so we've got those at least two groups, and I'm not sure if the group that Martin was looking into is a third group or connected to the Crutzfeld group. I could see that going either way. But we have heard of multiple factions. It wouldn't surprise me if there's at least three groups looking for the items, and maybe we'll get a bit more clarity on that as we go. It definitely seems like the Legion, or at least Jennifer Bloom, feels like the one who's the most potentially friendly right now. I mean, the fact that they want to get rid of the items so they cannot be used inherently sounds more good than all the people who want to get it because they think they'll get godlike powers. Because that feels very egotistical. It feels like they want to control things. It feels like they want to use it for personal gain, for world dominance, for whatever it may be. So, I mean, I think inherently they sound the best right now, but we'll see if that pans out. And, she also says that they have a rule that they don't kill anyone, which also sounds good, right? Typically, bad guys don't have a no-killing rule. So maybe that's a bit simplistic, but it's kind of the best hint we have as of right now to see, she could have hurt him last episode. She could have dealt with him this episode, potentially, but she didn't. So... we'll see where that goes as well. But no, I'm loving the mythology of all the items and how the rules work. And I think even more than the rules themselves, I'm liking how usually Joe, sometimes the villains, but usually Joe is using the mechanics that he's learned to his advantage. Like using it to find an item, or using it to get in a creative way, or get into the room in a creative way. All that stuff I really like, and the idea that the items reset. So what happens if you get all the items in the room and they all go into their original place? Does something big happen as a result? We're still having talks about, oh, this will let people talk to God, or maybe the items themselves are pieces of God. And what happens if you get them all together in that case? That's still super interesting. Whether it's true or not, or whether it's just about kind of, and if it isn't the case, I don't, if I was to guess right now, I don't think the show is going to outright answer that. If I was to guess, I would say at the end of this story, it's going to be still pretty ambiguous where the items came from, but I could be completely wrong. Maybe they are going to go into a deep dive as to exactly what this place is and how it came to be. But my guess is right now, we won't get that much clarity. It'll be a bit more ethereal and ambiguous than that, but I could be wrong. But that would be my guess right now. They'd want to keep a bit of the mystery alive even at the end of the show. But this was still very good. I think this was still very enjoyable. As much as the wanted for murder, the betrayal of the other guy that works at the police, that stuff was the weakest part of the episode for me. But everything about learning more about the items and how to use them to try and get to the clock, and everything with the Weasel and Joe working together and having this uneasy alliance was all very entertaining, right? The chemistry was pretty good because the Weasel is, well, he's been a weasel, right? He's literally acting like that. And then the actual kind of tension of, oh, we have to install a doorknob to get out of here whilst they're trying to get to us through their own bulletproof glass, I think is actually quite a fun set piece. So it's almost surprising they didn't grab another bunch of items while they were there in case they become important later, because they might be. As much as no one knows what some of these items do yet that he's got in a display case, they might end up being very important once you start combining them with stuff. Who's to say? But very, very exciting to see where some of this stuff goes. But that is my thoughts on episode 2 of 6 of The Lost Room. Because again, this is a couple of different formats. What's really confusing is that IMDb has 4 episodes listed, and I don't even know how that's possible, because Everything else I've seen is either 3 or 6. I'm watching 6. It's split into 6. There's some that are in 3, like sort of double-sized episodes. I don't know where IMDb's getting 4 from. I'm a little bit worried by that, but we'll cross the bridge if and when we come to it. But that is my thoughts on this one. Let me know what you thought of this in the comments below. Helps out a bunch if you do. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. You can support everything over at Patreon. Helps keep everything coming. Check out the movie channel, Male Fuzz Movies, for all the movie podcasts. But that is me, so thank you once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?